Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of It's That Deep.
Okay.
Today I'm joined by Shane.
Yes, that is me.
And Akram.
Hi guys.
So, if you guys would like to just introduce yourselves briefly, tell people watching what you're about, what you do.
My name's Shane and 19, from London. I'm a student. Your turn.
What do you study?
I study human geography and planning. Oh, yeah, first year.
Sounds erotic.
Wow.
Erotic.
Okay.
That's not the word I would choose, but okay.
Oh, human geography.
Whoa!
I just got it. Hi, my name's Akram. I'm 28 and I'm from East London. And I'm a dance coach and a mentor.
Thanks guys. So I'm not going to explain how this is going to work because if you watch the previous episodes you will know. So we're just going to dive straight in, we're going to answer some questions.
Go on, Carl.
Okay.
We're going to get started.
Ooh.
How many? It's not that many.
Why are you sure you want
Which charitable cause do you think is most deserving of money?
Whoa.
Is it that deep? I think you get charity at different levels though. So if you split it down to like local, national, regional and international, do I think one's more deserving than the other? Well, what is the main aim of charity? Isn't it you use charity to make things more equal in that way? But obviously there's going to be like inequalities in all those different regions. But if the inequality is greater somewhere else than it is on the different scales, does that make sense?
You'd want to give it to the one that bridges the greatest gap.
There you go. Yeah, I think so.
I see. What do you think that is?
The greatest gap is internationally in more underdeveloped countries. However, I think I would aim the charity at a more higher level, so like more like governmental level, and putting like increasing pressure on that because that's almost like the top down rather than like, of course, the bottom up. You're more sticking plasters, aren't you?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, plasters.
There you go.
It's difficult though, isn't it? Because you feel as if you don't really know where your money is going if you're giving it on such a large scale. That's how I feel anyway.
Well, I think that's the whole point of giving money in the first place, is that a lot of people don't like to give it because they don't know directly where the money's going. So that's why they're more likely, I think you're more inclined to give your money to something locally because you can physically see the change that's happening.
Yeah, I think there are charities out there that exist to lobby governments and to raise awareness, and where they have partnerships with charities that are on the ground in certain countries and stuff. But you probably just don't hear about them so much.
Yeah. But you have charities that do all three. So like something like Fair Trade, something like Christian Aid, like all these different charities do all the different levels in terms of not only projects just in developing countries, but also in schools and making sure you're raising awareness in schools so that they can carry forward that.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I always feel more inclined to give money or help out when there's children involved, just because I feel like children are so vulnerable in society. For me, that's the cause that I would probably, if I had a choice of like one charitable cause, I would choose that.
Children are future. I like what you're saying though about things that are going to make the biggest impact. I think that's the kind of charities I go for. But right now, a charity isn't coming to mind where that is the case. But something where you can see like revolutions, or you can see movements happening in other countries. So like I'm from Sudan, and like when you see like the things that are happening there and the changes that are going on, and you're like, wow, this is actually a real difference that's happening. What can we learn from this? How has that happened? Like this has happened largely because of the movement of the people, like civilians themselves. So if there was a charity that enabled that kind of thing to happen, or enabled people to apply pressure on unjust systems, then I think I would want to.
It's quite interesting because like both my parents are obviously in the charity sector as well, obviously. But they're both on very different levels of charity. So like my mum's more like a regional level in terms of London. She helps, it's called the London Gypsy and Traveller charity, and that is like a very different type of charity because that's more reducing prejudice against a certain group of people that are excluded from society.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily about that bridging the largest inequality there is, but it's almost it's like a different type of making sure people aren't totally excluded from the wider picture, if that makes sense. Whereas my dad was at Fair Trade, which is that international scale.
I think for me, when it comes to like dogs and stuff, that's where I don't get I'm not saying I don't like dogs. Like if you love dogs, do you know I love dogs too.
But obviously not that much.
But basically,
but my mum used to look after a guy with like Parkinson's disease, a like really frail guy, and he was like just about to die, and he was so rich. And he had so much money, but no family to give it to. Oh. And then she was like, "Oh, where's all this money gonna go when you die?" And he was like, "I'm gonna give it to the dog's home." And she was like, "Oh."
I guess someone's got to do it.
Yeah, legit.
I used to give to Dogs Trust when I was younger. I used to sponsor a dog. Yeah.
she's just one of them, really.
What's the dog's name?
Cindy.
Oh, how's Cindy doing now?
I don't know. She might be dead for all I know.
Wow.
That was a bit rough.
Ooh. Might need to take a pause on that one.
Oh, good.
I prefer that one.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought it was saying
Akram.
My turn.
Please go ahead.
Please go ahead. Thank you, Brianne. Right. Which is worse, hurting someone or being hurt by someone? Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely being hurt by someone. No, obviously, you know, neither is lovely. I think I feel really bad when I do hurt someone. But then again, there's different types of hurting someone, isn't there? Like, how are you hurting them? Are you hurting them physically? Is it like momentary? Ow, what are you doing? That's gone. That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, cool.
Something else is more long lasting. Random, I hate you. That's gonna leave a scar in Rhiannon emotionally for
so true.
years.
Yeah.
And that's gonna have a big impact. So already we need to establish what that is.
Hurting someone is worse than being hurt because I feel like I can get over it, and I know that I'll get over it, whereas I will never know if the other person is really, really impacted by what I did. It will always play on my mind basically if it's something big, if it's something significant. But then I'm that kind of person that will feel really bad if I accidentally nudge someone.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe you've done this.
If I accidentally step on their foot or whatever.
You must feel bad
all the time.
I
It's
definitely
like on the
spend
underground, rush hour.
like
I'm so sorry.
every day I am ridden with guilt.
Central line must be on diet.
Yeah, for real.
This is why I don't go on the tube.
Yeah, I'd agree also, hurting someone is worse. Because for the same reasons that you've said. Like, I'm not going to expand, just like, we've got time here, guys.
With what you were saying as well, but also you don't know what the level of forgiveness is as well from someone else. Mm-hmm. So you might be ready to forgive, or you know how long it takes you to recover and how long it takes you to forgive. But then if you're hurting someone, then that's two people that you're kind of hurting. It's not just like it's them and yourself, because you're kind of like, I don't know what the situation's going to be like. Is it your go?
It's my go.
Oh.
I don't know why I'm shuffling them. There's like 5 in there. Oh, yeah. Should scientists try to help people beat old age so we can live longer?
That is a really good question, actually. Genuinely, that's a good question.
No.
Whoa.
I disagree. I feel as if the world is so overpopulated as it is, and I think it's actually good that diseases exist.
This is the start of a Thanos, like the Thanos.
This is legit, man.
Oh my days.
Yeah. It's not that I want people to die.
Every sentence should start like that.
It's just that I feel like it's a natural thing, natural selection and all that. Mm-hmm. And obviously, like, members of my family have been ill and passed away because of that, and that was horrible. But I feel as if it is becoming a bit of an issue that there are so many people, unless perhaps we focus more on trying to improve the conditions of the world so that people can. I feel like I'm doing a whole.
No, I know what you're saying. I know what you mean. Like, as in, death is a part of life.
Yeah.
And I think with new technologies and our advancements of whatever science and stuff like that, it's kind of like we're trying to prolong, or we've actually turned death into something that we feel like is wrong. But death isn't wrong, and death needs to happen, and death is a part of life. It's needed for things to move forward. And I feel like the way we view things sometimes, our perspective is like death is the absolute worst thing. I feel like there's science which is good to help treat diseases, but if the sole goal is to prolong life,
what is the purpose of that?
Then what are you doing?
I think that's so true, because it's coming down to, if you think about it, that science, that research will probably cost so much money to prolong maybe a few years, or like preventing declining, cell destruction or whatever.
Apoptosis.
There we go. Degree right there. But surely they should be focusing on like how to increase the overall life expectancy in terms of like the average, rather than just focusing on the maybe increasing 1 or 2 years at the top, because obviously ultimately that's only going to benefit those at the top.
Would you even be able to do?
That's the thing, that only benefit those at the top of society. Really.
I feel like we kind of all got there
in the end. Just the way you started,
was
you kind of like went like that. You just went
bam. But you made us look good. So thank you.
Good.
Sacrificial.
I took one for the team.
We're grateful, but you didn't have to. You go. Oh, here we go.
If you could remodify the school system, what would you change? Okay.
No maths, I'm joking.
I think if I could remodify the school system, I would abolish private school education.
Wow.
And I would have that, if you were to send, you have districts, like school districts, so you would send your child to the local school, if that makes sense. And then if there are wealthier people, then if they want to then improve their child's education, then they can then pay to improve the school themselves. So not only would that improve their child's education, but also the others there. But my issue with that is you'll then get agglomeration of people, or like a coming together of basically quite rich people in areas. So then all their children will go to the same schools, and then they can contribute to those. But I don't really know how to get past that.
So you've got a plan, but you've seen the floor.
I was thinking more about the subjects themselves. So I was thinking about how certain subjects I think really need to be addressed, such as learning about politics and learning about finances. A lot of the stuff is so unnecessary. And I understand that it's more than just, it's not just about what the kids are learning, it's like teaching them to think outside the box. But it's like there's so much of that and not enough of skills that we actually need, because you come away from school and you don't even know how to like pay taxes.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think when I was a teacher and people were looking at where students would challenge you on the relevance on certain things, I think my line was, schools give you as many, they teach you all the things possible so that you have all the options out there. I think one thing I would include, probably just another subject that incorporates or gives an appreciation of the history of other cultures, and just a promotion of like diversity in the way that people think. Is that what you want
just
to say?
different perspectives, because we are taught a lot about our own culture's history, which kind of makes sense because we live here and stuff, but it's good to get a bit of a wider perspective on other histories in the world, should I say.
Yeah, we're all taught like our certain perspective of history, which is like, a lot of it to do with our country and stuff like that, and world wars and stuff like that. But even like, for example, when you learn about Christopher Columbus, you learn about that in one way and one way only, but you're not necessarily taught about the other side of it and how other people might perceive Christopher Columbus to be, where there's this whole other perspective as well, which isn't so great. But just a way to value diversity in opinion.
The way that history is taught though in specific countries to be based around their history centred from that country, like in the UK of like learning about the world wars and then like the Cold War based in the UK, whereas America, obviously you learn about American history and from the American perspective, and then in Ireland necessarily you learn about Irish history and then history based on that perspective. I think in turn that creates like a viewpoint where you're quite centred around your own country then from an early age, from those crucial years when you're at school, which creates quite that patriarchy in some, that nationalism or that, that's what you feel from such a young age, that you are representing this country, when in turn then you could lose sight of other countries and people from other parts of the world and necessarily think that your country might be better than others, which is, I guess that's what borders do.
So in a way, it's massive, isn't it? Because schools are in a position where they're able to instill a more global view from the offset. But then that would be changing the whole way that the world works, which is massive.
It's because they want to do, because everything is so competitive, you're trying to make your country as competitive as possible. If you're promoting a symbol of saying, well, this country's fantastic, this country's fantastic, you're more likely to lose that workforce maybe to those countries when people are not wanting to benefit the economy of that specific country that they're then being educated in, because technically that's almost like a brain drain. You're then educating this population for them to go and benefit another economy, which is like not beneficial to the country at all. They're almost like losing that investment that they've placed in you of the education system in general. So that's why you have so many people being educated in some areas and then leaving and coming to, I guess we see it quite a lot in London. London's one of the most diverse places in the world. That's due to the fact that it's just so attractive to so many different countries and so many different people from countries, because there's so many different opportunities here, both creative, both financially, both employment-wise.
I didn't really think of it like that actually. It makes sense.
Thank you, Shane.
Sorry.
It says, should parents be able to choose the sex of their child?
Oh, bloody hell. I thought it was going to be a light-hearted question.
Well, short answer, no for me.
Short answer, no for me.
Yes.
Cool.
I am leaning more towards no. Can I hear your reasons first?
You know, there is a massive problem, like especially in countries like China, where there's like, you know,
I think
that's now being abandoned.
Has it?
Yeah, they don't have that anymore.
Okay.
But it does encourage that kind of mindset of having one as more desirable than the other. I think it's just like a basis for things to kind of become negative. I don't know if that makes sense. It's like, we shouldn't even go there because there's things that could come out of it that are negative. What am I saying?
I would say that you're just messing with like the natural order of things, yeah? So if you're able to choose the sex of your child, then that cancels out what statistically will happen, yeah? So in every situation, there's a 50-50 chance, yeah? Maybe, you know, depending on the genetics of the people, whatever, the sort of susceptibilities or whatever from the family background there isn't, but generally there's a 50-50 chance. And because of that statistic, for every person, you will have generally across the world, half of the population being male, half of the population being female, which needs to happen. But if you are in a position where you're able to choose the sex of your child, then you're going to be messing with those statistics, which may create an imbalance. I don't know if it would create a massive imbalance, because it'd be interesting to see what people choose. I reckon people would choose males generally over females.
I think it goes down to a reality point, which is like, you're almost, if you're able to choose, you're almost saying one's more superior than the other. And I think in a lot of cultures globally, there is that aspect of, especially in the dependent on the development of the country, it's about having that male representative in the house. That is, sadly, it's still that they go out, they do the work, and are the bread earners in the family. And if you were able then to choose the gender of the child, then that would, in a way, you would have more people then choosing male, and then that would then promote that inequality or that sexism within the country, if there was more people open to choose male.
Yeah.
Could you say though there are other things that are messing up this natural order, such as like people changing their sex? Or do you think because that's their decision, it's different? Because obviously if parents are choosing for their kids are not, obviously it's their decision, not the child. So do you think that's different? Or
That's a good point actually.
But generally it's almost that situation of where your parents are choosing for you, whereas if you decide to get it changed, that's your own decision.
And is
In
it
that
really
situation.
that deep? Is it really necessary?
What, to choose the sex of your child?
Is it purely just a selfish thing because you want to choose?
Well, I guess but I think it's down to the what culture you're in, because I think a lot of those cultures they will want a male
For a reason.
but because they think when it gets to the point where they retire, it's not like
Yeah.
it's not like our society where they get a pension at the end of it. It's not like that. They rely on their children to therefore provide their income at the end of after they've retired. So I think in that instance, they probably would choose, which is quite sad. But then obviously that's down to that society in general.
Yeah, our society is obviously quite different.
Also, it just takes the fun away from it, isn't it? That's moved away from like even just, do you want to know what the sex of your child
When you
is?
have kids, do you want to find out the sex?
I don't.
I don't. For my first one, I don't.
I just want to be surprised. Like, and be like, yay, it's a boy, or oh, like, it's a girl.
Whoa.
So that concludes episode 4 of It's That Deep. Thank you so much, Shane and Akram.
You are so welcome.
That's okay.
Anytime.
Yeah, for sure.
Come back again. We'd love to have you.
So thanks very much for coming on our show.
Yeah.
Whoa! Plot twist. We'll see you in the next episode.
I'm not doing that. Come on.